Ouais. En fait, la présentation d'aujourd'hui, elle est sur ordinateur.
On t'a pas vu tout ça, tu ne viens même pas, tu recommences. Tu continues.
All right. So it's a few minutes after 7:50 New York time, so we'll get started here. Hey, everybody. Hey, students and faculty. Welcome to our first program-wide Big Data Meetup for the City University of New York School of Professional Studies Master's Program in Data Analytics. There's going to be a lot of us on here, so I'm going to ask all of you to keep your phones on mute for most of the time. I think Mike will help enforce that. Thank you guys all for coming to our first program-wide meetup. We're really excited about it. We have a great speaker for you today. Before I make the introduction, I just want to make a couple of acknowledgments. First, I want to thank Jay Naran for making the introduction to the UN Global Pulse Lab in Jakarta. We started talking with Jongan and a few other people in his lab a few months back. Talked a little bit about how we could work together, how we could have him or someone on his team come in. And Jay really was the one who was the spark that got that going, so we really appreciate that. Also want to thank Paul Russo. You guys all know Paul, but I want to thank him for doing most of the administrative work to get the okay that we can do this, setting everything up. That way we can make this happen. I want to thank Mike Schulte, who is hosting us and is taking care of our GoToMeeting account and making sure that everything runs smoothly. I want to thank all you guys for attending, taking the time out to be here and to listen to this great talk. Thank you all students. Thank you faculty. Thank you everyone else who may be in here. We appreciate it. And I especially want to thank our speaker, John Lee. John is a data scientist, and he's a research lead at the Pulse Lab Jakarta, which is a joint program between the United Nations and the government of Indonesia. It's a really great program. There are a few different UN Global Pulse labs around the country. His current focus is on the intersection of big data and social development and humanitarian action. He's testing new opportunities for big data for development through different modalities of partnerships with UN agencies, government partners, NGOs, private companies, academia. He's going to talk with us a little bit about the UN Global Pulse program and about one of the projects that, one of the very successful projects that they worked on and is currently available and currently public. And I want to thank you very much for coming here, Jonathan. So without any further ado, I'm going to make myself disappear, and I'm going to turn the talk over to our speaker. So go ahead and take it away.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much for the introductions. Right, good evening, probably New York, and good morning and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm really great pleasure to be presenting Big Data for Development to the students and you guys. Well, actually, originally I wanted to bring some of other data scientists from our other post lab, but for some reason I could not make it. But we'll see next time we have another chance for them to present and share their research project to you as well. Right, so today, as you already informed, I wanted to talk about big data for development. Actually, there are two things. So first of all, I wanted to share why United Nations doing some big data project to help the vulnerable people in the world, and how we work with external partners for big data projects. The second part is more about some examples of the big data for development and humanitarian actions, which includes one of our research project we recently done with the social media named Nowcasting Food Prices in Indonesia using social media. So I hope at the end you have a little bit better sense about the big data for development, as well as how we work with and how we collect and analyze, process, or make some actionable plan using the big data with our partners. Right. So I think the first part maybe takes 20 minutes and 25 minutes, and then the second part about the projects probably is another 25 minutes, I think so. Right. So then first aside about why UN care about big data and what is the global pulse and how we work with our client and partners. Let me start with this image, actually, which was drawn originally with the mobile data phone call data sets. But what I wanted to talk to you is the world and the countries are connected. Actually, just simply, you can imagine that people travel around the world using train or flight or cars, etc. But at the same time, the countries and the peoples are connected in online spaces as well. Actually, for instance, this online session is one of the examples. But people use a lot the social media and social network to talk with their friends or to share their information to their friends. Sometimes, although they haven't met each other on the ground, but they call their friend and then they talk with them, even on the other side of the earth. But very importantly, the countries affect each other. For instance, several years ago, in Iceland, a volcano erupted, and then many people in African countries lost their job, in particular in flower industry. Can you imagine why? Actually, the flower companies deliver tons of flowers every day, but due to no flight available, then they cannot deliver. And eventually, the companies decided to fire their workers. There is no job security. They just suddenly lost their job because of the volcano eruptions, which was not expected. And another example, a couple of years ago, soybean price in US was increased. Many poor people in Indonesia suffered because every day they consume and they eat a lot soybean products such as tofu and tempeh in Indonesia. Actually, in Indonesia, the number of population is around 250 or 60, or sometimes people say it's 70 million. And unfortunately, the 30% of the people earns less than $2 per day. They are really, really poor. So because of the price of increase of the soybean and soybean products, they cannot afford to buy enough food and tofu and tempeh. So like that, actually the countries are really connected and they affect each other, and the world are really, really rapidly changing. But now I want to talk a little bit more official statistics, which the public sectors usually use for making their decisions and making their policies. Actually, the official statistics is gathered and collected and produced by the standard methods. Actually, some people visit the fields and meet the peoples and ask the questionnaire and collect the books and analyze and publish it. Actually, some developed countries even they use some technology-based survey or online sensors using the tablet or mobiles, which make faster processing and so on. But in developing countries, still they are using really, really old methods. So they schedule the meeting and they visit theirs. It takes a lot of time. So, and even in Indonesia, the number of islands is about 15,000, and the 100 of island people live. So it's cost a lot. It takes a lot of the time. But the thing is, because of the dynamics of funding, sometimes the survey is delayed, or even they decided to stop their process in the middle of data collection or before publishing the data set, meaning that there is no available official statistics. So all makes kind of the information gap between the current status and the time of data collections. So depending on the sectors or depending on the countries, the information gap can really, really vary. But still, several years of the gap is frequently happens and observed in many developing countries. So sometimes if we look on some data sets or official statistics available in certain sectors, 10 years ago data set is the really latest one. But now, as I said again, the world is rapidly changing. So then what can they do? So very frequently, they try to find some more recent data set or up-to-date data sets, even real-time data sets for better decision-making process. That's the reality of the public sectors, specifically in developing countries. But if you look at the private sectors, then their story is totally different. Actually, they have data set, they actually collected their data set as well. So which named big data, right? So and then they analyze it. They make some actionable plan almost real time, either to make their customer happy or to make more revenues, but they have the data sets. If you see that Facebook, they have a lot of the people working on the data science and their engineering. So they make new algorithm, they revise the existing methods to process to come up with the big data, a big size of the data set. But again, the Facebook also take care about some development issues. For instance, they analyzed people's conversations when they lost their job, or when earthquake happens in the August 2014, they collected, anonymized the Facebook feeds, and then analyzed that to see what kind of conversation are theirs. And also they analyzed some distance. They found some correlation between the number of the messages and the distance between the origin and the people's location, something like that. That's the private sector, right? So then probably some people's curious then whether we have some data set which is useful for developments and humanitarian actions. This video clip shows people's mobility patterns in a city, where people come from and where to go in real time. Actually, this is produced by the city of Geneva in Switzerland. They work with one of the major mobile operators there, and those kind of the video or those kind of the analysis can give a little bit more insight about the mobility and the dynamics. Probably you can imagine that, what if the government and private sectors know and have those kind of insight, then when disaster happens, they probably make a better evacuation plan for the peoples and the vulnerable peoples. Clearly, we are not interested in tracking some individuals, but even the aggregate levels information is still really, really valuable because there's no official statistics or a previous study about that. This is another video. Actually, we produced this year. Actually, we used Foursquare data set collected in Greater Jakarta area, right? So you can identify some areas which have more check-in than others. So this is a heat map. So the red shows more people checking theirs. Well, actually, as a local peoples in Indonesia, I can recognize some areas of red which are the shopping malls and the park and the airport, etc. Actually, the governments, the Indonesian government collect every 3 or 4 years time cycles infrastructure mappings. This is pretty much based on the village head or the district head reporting. Sometimes that information is not accurate enough to make the city planning. But if those kind of the new insight or those kind of the real-time information is available, then they can use that information as well as official statistics. Actually, when we analyze the big data to generate some insight or a real-time insight, we don't say that we wanted to replace the official statistics, but we wanted to provide additional valuable real-time information for better making decisions. So back again about the official statistics story, right? So public sectors use kind of the snapshot information probably collected some time ago, maybe 2 years ago, 5 years ago, but probably at the end, what they need is more real-time or continuously introduced information for a better decision-making. So that's why 4 years ago, Pulse of Jakarta started in New York, 2010, right after the world economic crisis started in US. Actually, at that time, the United Nations learned that some developing countries really suffer because of the world crisis. But the thing is, they don't have enough data. They don't have latest or recent information for decision making. But as I said, the private sectors are a different story. They have data sets really recently collected, and then they have some technologies. They use their insight for business purpose, but probably those kind of insight is also useful for public sectors. So the Secretary General decided to make the research lab under Executive Office of the UN, and then 2 years later, the Pulse of Jakarta started at October 2012, and then recently, the end of 2013, we have another lab, Pulse Lab Kampala in Uganda. So in the world, there are 3 Pulse Labs, and we are about 30 or 40 people, and we work on some big data research project with our partners. So we are doing 2 tracks of activities. The first one is innovation drivers, such as this is the research lab, big data research lab. So we try to discover high-potential applications using big data, and also we try to develop scalable technology solutions, and we're trying to produce some compelling examples of implementation for impact. So this is pretty much about the research lab. And also we have another track, so which are we act as ecosystem catalyst. Because we learn a lot when we work on some developing country, for them, the big data is quite new domain. So they pretty much don't understand what big data is, what big data can help them, etc. So we try to raise awareness about the big data as a social goods, and also we support some regulatory bodies because sometimes the regulation is not ready for the big data projects, so we talk with the regulation peoples. And also we learn a lot. There are many local communities already work on some issues on the ground. So we're trying to coordinate and we're trying to facilitate them to make a bigger project. And also we're trying to strengthen the public sector's capacity for capacity building. So again, the Pulse of Jakarta is the joint project between the United Nations and the government of Indonesia. And our direct partner is Ministry of National Development Planning, but we actively working with the other line ministries and UN country teams such as UNICEF Indonesia or the World Food Program Indonesia to tackle different kind of the issues in Indonesia, also with some sectors. Actually, as Shirley mentioned before, there are many poor peoples in Indonesia, and Indonesia is one of the disaster-prone country. For instance, there are more than 150 active volcanoes So almost every month or every 2 months, volcano erupted, people evacuate and they dispatch it. There are a lot of issues, so we work on that. And some people may ask, then who are there, right? So as a research lab, we have the data science team composed of data scientists, myself. Here's Lab Jakarta. We have data analysts, data engineers, and social scientists or economists all together work on crunching the numbers or generate some insights, produce some actionable plan. But we need some people from the soft science to coordinate the peoples or to make some partnership with others. And also we have good communication specialists unless we cannot reach out some other peoples. And also sometimes the data is related to legal issues and related to privacy. And also to make the partnership, we need some lawyers, so we have the lawyer as well. As I said, we are the post lab in the world, about 30 or 40 people, but there are 1,000 or 100,000 of the real issues related to development. So we need collaborations with other people. So basically we work with the governments and United Nations country team, but at the same time we work with private sectors and open source technologists, local communities, importantly academia and local enterprisers and NGOs, and we have some donors as well. Basically, we have 3 different kinds of the partnership. One is data, and second is told, and third is expertise. For instance, the private sectors can provide us data set, or some company provide us their analysis toolkit, or sometimes they allocate their people's domain experts for us to work with them. That's something how we work with them. So one of the big hypotheses, important hypothesis for us is digital services are very effective sensor network for measuring human well-being. So based on that, we are interested in 2 different kinds of the data sets from the private sectors or others. So-called first one is what people say, and the second is what people do. Right. So about the first one, generally the public sectors, as usual, they are interested in listening what are the people's concern and issues on the ground. If that information is real time, then it's perfect, right? So one of the data sources can be the online newspapers, but the social media or social network is another side. For instance, Indonesia. Very interestingly, Indonesia is one of top 5 Twitter country in the world, and Jakarta, the capital, is the #1 Twitter city in the world. So people really different, diverse issues. They are talking different issues in Twitter. And also, we look at the Uganda. The Uganda peoples are not much use of social media, but they use radio. For instance, for the same purpose of the social media, in a point of our view, disseminate some information or share the information. So they use radio channels to disseminate some emergency situation or situational information. So our colleagues in Cote are working on developing the early warning system by mining the radio channels. So secondly, we are interested in people's behavior informations. What is the people's online search behaviors? What is the mobile phone data sets users behavior or postal information, right? So probably if they change their behavior, then something happens. If we can identify some signals of the changes, then probably government can make some proper actions quite rapidly. The signals can be wrong or the signals can be right, but further investigations definitely needed. But having that information is quite important. For instance, there are different kinds of the values from the big data for sustainable developments. As I said, official data set sometimes quite late. So if they have some real-time information mined from the big data, this is new insight. This is additional complementary information. By mining the big data, they can save their cost of data collections, and even they sometimes reduce some risk of data collection by analyzing, for instance, remote sensing data set. And also having some real-time information, they can make some rapid response. And regarding the program implementation, if they have some sense about the program in real time, they can make some adaptation for it quickly. So, for instance, we've done research with the UNICEF Indonesia to monitor the immunization and health-related, but the focus is immunization and vaccination-related issues in Indonesia. For instance, some Indonesian people consider autism or death as side effect of the vaccines. The thing is, the fact is not really. But still they believe the autism is one of the side effects. Sometimes because of the vaccines, their baby died, right? Unfortunately. But then consequently, the vaccine coverage rate of Indonesia getting lower and lower. So we tested Twitter as an effective means to listen people's conversation or concern about immunizations. So we triggered a set of the keywords related to side effect or their side effect. For instance, here, as you see that around October 2012, people suddenly talk about death. Actually, there was a case, a baby was dead after the vaccinations, actually. The police investigations revealed that the death is not related to vaccine, but because of physical injury of the baby's head. But the thing is, people thought, oh, because of the vaccine, the baby died. Probably it's my baby, or my friend's baby should not be vaccinated. This is kind of the situational information. Having that information, the government or the UNICEF can make more rapid response. For instance, even using the tweeters, because the Twitter is kind of effective information dissemination platform. So we analyzed the propagation network of a certain issue, here the side effect of conversations. So we could identify a set of the people who are doctors, but who are influential people in that topics. Then probably the governments can think of, all right, disseminating, asking them to disseminate this correct information. Then people can understand what is correct and what is wrong. So this is something Twitter can do in even Indonesia, right? And so Pulse Lab has innovation program. We have 5 sectoral program, which includes foods and agriculture's economic well-being, humanitarian actions, urban dynamics, and public sectors. And also we have 3 cross-sectoral programs, which are data privacy and a research project supporting the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations. And also we are interested in real-time monitoring and evaluation feedback. And also we have another incubators. So when, let's say, we found a very interesting new types of data, and within that sectors we testing the usability and feasibility of the data sets, and if it is it's successful, then we try to use for certain sectors project informations. And after the research project, we try to build a toolkit in an open software form. For instance, the text mining toolkits for public sectors, or speech recognitions in Uganda for public sectors for early warning system, etc. And then we will share that the toolkits with public sectors. Then later on, they can use that toolkits for other different kind of their program. So first of all, to make the research project, we spend a lot of time with our collaborators or clients, which are UN the team or the government, to understand what are the real issues on the ground. They are domain experts, although we are some experts of the big data process or data analysis, but they know their program. So first of all, the start is to discuss with them. And then we brainstorm together what kind of the big data can help that issues, might help that issues. And then we do some quick feasibility study to see whether that big data can help or promising. If turn out good, then we launch a research project, probably several months or more than that, depending on the complexity of the research project, with some partners about the data, toolkits, and expertise. All together, we are doing the research project. After that, we produce a report to disseminate our methodologies and result and lessons to the rest of the world. And as I said, we try to make the prototype and publish, and at the end, the public sectors can use that information for their project. All right, so that's pretty much why United Nations care about the big data and how we work with the partners and what kind of the modality or the partnership modality we have to work with. So now I introduced some of the proof of concept research using the mobile data. Actually, the mobile data is one of the very interesting big data resource for development purpose. So after that, I'm going to explain a bit more about nowcasting project, right? So the mobile data is actually collected by the mobile operator, definitely, for billing purpose. So they should know per people's how many calls how many calls they made, and how many SMS, and where people are located, and where people to make the phone calls, etc. So one example of the CDRs or call detail records format is something like the caller's information and callee's information, and then the location of the caller and callee, in terms of the in the resolution of the tower, cell tower, and then probably if that is the call, then there is some information about the call durations. And if that is about the SMS, then probably it's a number of SMS, something like that. So, but those kind of information are quite useful even for the public sectors by knowing some mobility patterns or social interactions or economic activities. So in the following slides, I will show you some quick examples of how the call detail records or the mobile data set can be used for public purpose. So the first example is about the height and mobility patterns. Actually, the Swedish Institute analyzed the mobile operators data set after the Haiti outbreaks to see the CDRs or the mobile data is a good data sources to understand the mobility patterns, because the governments wanted to know where people go after the outbreaks, for instance, because in a developing country or even the developed country, there's no effective methods to understand and to know people's mobility patterns before the big data era. Actually, the people cannot live in the affected areas. They need to evacuate. They need to dispatch in other places. Government point of view, knowing that information, they can prepare some refugee camp. They can prepare some food and aid or doctors to help the peoples. So they analyzed, the Swedish Institute analyzed the CDRs, and it turns out if they had the CDRs in real time, during the disaster, then the government has maybe have the better decision makings. All right. So another example, this is we've done this year with one of the mobile operators in Europe, in Mexico flooding context. So the question is, the mobile data sets can be used for the disaster impact assessment. Actually, let's say, assuming there are the mobile operators or the public sectors, let's say it's a limit to the mobile operators. Mobile operators know the average number of calls or SMS certain areas. This is the average, right? But suddenly there's no phone call there or there's no SMS there. combining some contextual information such as flooding those areas, then they might imagine that, oh, right, because of the flooding, the areas are flooded, so no people can enter that areas. Because of that, there's no phone calls. As far as they see the signals and the antenna are right? So this type of information can be used for disaster impact assessment as well. And also mobile data set can be used for preparedness. For instance, Japan is one of the disaster-prone country as well. So one of the mobile operators in Japan, they report regularly the number of the peoples or the approximated people certain district or certain areas to disaster agencies. Then the disaster agencies can imagine or can make the better plan for peoples. So when disaster happens, immediately they already know, okay, that areas, there are X, Y, Z people there, so we need to prepare those doctors, those food, and those waters, those aids, something like that. So those kind of information quite useful, right? But in other domains, like the disease spreading, right? Obviously, for disaster context, the mobile data sets seems like quite useful. But interestingly, in health or the disease spread out, this is useful as well. For instance, the malaria, right? Malaria is basically a disease spread out mosquito. But then some people may think about, right, so, okay, mosquito, then a malaria should be spread out certain areas because mosquito cannot fly over countries or fly over the cities 100 kilometers. But the thing is, malaria spread out over the country. Why? Infected people traveled, right? So they travel from a city to another, and then mosquito bites, and the mosquito bite another people, then there's some possibility that malaria spread out. Then by analyzing the people's mobility patterns from a city to another, let's say the city A is quite, there are malaria outbreak. And then by analyzing the people's mobility, then this is something, a method to model the spread of the malaria as well. And even those kind of the mobile information can be used for city planning. For instance, in the city of Seoul in South Korea, they used mobile data for making a new bus plans during the night. Basically, the usual behaviors for using the transportation during the daytime is different from the nighttime. But unfortunately, there's no effective data set or official statistics showing that the people's behavior information in the night, where people are and where people go, in the middle of night, 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. So they study those mobility using the mobile data set. So after that, they know, okay, so in the middle of night, people's here. And then they go those areas. So we need to make, let's say, 12 new transportations, new bus lines, these using this network, these lesson learned from the mobile data set. After that, they studied some qualitative study, which shows that planning was quite good. People are quite satisfied, and people use a lot that night bus at the same time. At this point. And also, those kind of the mobile data set can be used for food security monitoring as well. Actually, the food security monitoring is usually conducted by the survey based. So for instance, which areas people are having enough foods, and actually this is kind of related, more or less related to people's consumption power. So we analyze people's top-up informations. Actually, in developing country, many people use the prepaid phone rather than postpaid. So the operators can understand what is the average money of the top-up or the recharge. So then there are some correlations, right? So, and also those kind of information is quite useful to understand socioeconomic or properly as well. Actually, the leftmost one is about the socioeconomic levels collected by the official statistics. So again, people visit some areas and then they ask the questionnaires, gather that information, and produce the socioeconomic levels map. But the CDRs can make those things as well by analyzing the communication patterns or the type of information. Actually, this is about the type of, right? So if you see here, probably there are several kinds of the peoples, right? Some peoples just top up every dollar. Right after consuming the $1, they can top up again $1. But some people top up $50, but even before finishing the $50, they another 50 put it there. So by knowing that information, we can produce real-time level of poverty. Because some poor peoples are move around, and because of some disasters or because the price of the living in some areas is getting higher, then they decided to move on other areas. So real-time information is quite useful, but the thing is official statistics cannot track those things, but those information is quite useful as a complementary information. Right, so now I wanted to explain a bit more about one of the research projects, nowcasting. Right, actually one of our earliest project as a concept research, we studied the tweet volumes related to foods. Actually, the Indonesian peoples eat rice, so we define a set of the keywords related to rice. So then we collect tweets. People talk about rice, right? Over over a little bit more years, we count the number of tweets related to price and the price of the rice. And then we compare those volumes against the food price inflations. Very interestingly, they are really correlated. Actually, when the price of rice increased, then people talk more. And then the stable, then no talking. But against the price was increased, then people talk about it. Against more about the price of information. After that, we were curious. Okay, so people talk about something. Here is the price of some commodities like the food in Twitter. Then can we identify? Can we learn or more information of the price from the Twitter? So we've done a research with the research in the PhD student from Korea. So he analyzed 16 months of the Twitter data set to see, can we estimate food price information from social media? Then, is it kind of the good information or not? So we collected tweet information against the 16 months from 2012 June until 2013 October. Originally, we were interested in 20 different kind of the commodities in consultation with the governments and WFP, World Food Program in Indonesia, on the 16 commodities. Using some taxonomy, actually we call it taxonomy, but it is kind of the key phrases or the key set. So we use the commodity names and price informations, including the rupiah, this is the currency, and the units per kilo or per gram. So using the taxonomy for 16 commodities, we originally collected 78,000 of the keyword tweets. After that, we look at that and we remove the duplicates, and then we look at a little bit about the text. So we learned that some keywords are not relevant to our context. For instance, in Bahasa Indonesia, naik means in English almost fine. So it shows the differences rather than the price information. So we exclude some tweets having those kind of the keywords. So at the end, we have 41,000 of the tweets for 16 months for 16 commodities. Right. Then we analyze a little bit to see the number of tweets or the number of available tweets per day over 16 months. And we learned that 4 commodities such as the beef, chicken, chili, and onions has some information. for instance, at least 1 tweet per day in average. But other 12 commodities only have some few tweets, or people don't talk about those commodities price information in the Twitter. So we decided to focus on, okay, so 4 commodities have some online signals in the Twitters for this purpose. Right, okay, this is 4 commodities, and then we try to model and try to identify the price information from those information. For validation purpose, we used the daily information published by the Ministry of the Trade. Actually, the price is not really daily, but almost, I would say, 80% of the days have their information. Actually, the Indonesia is kind of a good test bed for this project because actually, for validating our models, we need ground truth data. So Indonesia has that. If this methodology and this approach is successful, then we can replicate in, let's say, in African country or other developing country. So Indonesia has good test bed because we have the validations or the ground truth data. Right. So first we plotted the number of tweets per day and over the 60 months. And we learned that similar before, when something happens related to food price, people talk more, right? So here's in Indonesia, fuel price is very much related to food price. So when the governments discuss about the fuel subsidy cut, then people talk more about food price. So people concerned about the food price as well. So there are other events, but actually, the number of tweets is more or less related to real-world events. But the thing is, when we compare the official statistics just directly with the number of tweets, it does not look at this number of tweets is not enough to tracking the price trends information. So then we can imagine, okay, so per day we extract that information and then make the average. So this is the graph with the average per day, average price information per day. This is from B. So each dot or its blue point shows the average price per day over certain days, right? So it seems like between 20,000 and more than 100,000, the currency is rupiah per kilo. But the thing is, the official statistics is around 75,000, under 100,000. But those kind of just extracting the price information and then make the average is not enough to track the trends information. So we need some models or we need some statistical approach. So our idea started with this simple the formula. Well, actually, simple hypothesis, simple assumptions, right? So today's price information might be inferable from the price information yesterday plus some information gathering or mined from Twitter today. So this is quite simple. So alpha and beta is kind of the weighted function. So combining those yesterday information and then today's Twitter information, then this is something for produced price information. This is simple enough. And then we develop a little more, right? So this is the final models. We suggested 2 models, the food price information in Indonesia for commodities. So here you can see this is the better, right? So we put some weight functions on the price information from Twitter based on the number of tweets in logarithm functions, but still this is related to number of tweets on that day, right? So if people talk about more certain days, the price information of certain commodities, then we say that, oh, this information is more credible. This information is more reliable. So we put some weight functions there as a better from the beginnings. Another is okay. So we need to exclude some outliers. from the tweet information. So if the tweet information is outside of our boundary, then we will discard it, right? But still, although a price information from Twitter is within the boundary, we put some weight functions, okay? So the price information is close to the yesterday's information. Okay, this is more reliable, but far from that, then less reliable. So we put some weight functions there. So it makes the full formula of the price information today is price information yesterday plus price information from Twitter. But we need one more thing, right? Because people don't talk about the price information for some time. So we need to, but our model need to evolve over time. So in that case, for instance, if nobody talk about beef price information for 2 weeks, then we just count, or we just make some average of, actually, if people don't talk about 5 days about the beef price information, then the current information, the tweet information, is just inferred based on the past 14 days of the price information. So we, we make the average and then put it there. Then the model can evolve over time. Right. So this is beef. So originally we collected the 14,000 of the tweets after the pre-processing, but by applying our models, we get about 5,700 tweets for tracking the price information on real time. So here, as you can see, the red line shows the official statistics, and the blue line shows our model's price over time. This is 16 months until the October, but still we gathering more information and then put it more in our website. And also, actually, so the number of tweets is about 5,000. The Pierce correlation is quite really good. It's actually more than 0.8. If you see the chicken hairs, so the number of tweets we used for that model is about less than 1,000 over the 16 months. But if you see the official statistics presented by the red, that there are some up and down and up and down and up and down. Our models can track. Well, actually, we don't say that this model can identify exact price information, but rather than that, we are interested in knowing some trends, right? So if you see the trends up and down, then models can track then pretty well, with the Pierce correlation is good enough, right? And this is onion, right? If you see, onion is one of the most fluctuated commodities among 4. So here's the around 2013, beginning of the 2013 is suddenly increase, and then the middle of 2013 it's decreased and then increase a lot, right? So if you see the model's price, then you can see the model can track well about the trends information. But at the end it failed because if you see the below pictures, then actually there is no tweet. Don't people talk about that? Actually, sometimes we learn that if the price decreases, then people doesn't care. People don't care about that, and then they don't talk about, right? So there is no tweets. Actually, obviously, sorry, our model cannot track well about the price information. So this is the chili, right? So very interestingly, for the chili, we used only 200 tweets over 16 months. So here, as you can see, the model can track the information. Actually, the official statistics make some, if you see the 2012 October, there are some new codes there, right? So I asked to some people in the government, they said this is because of the sampling, maybe, but they are not sure. But this is not usual. Indeed. So the model can track that as well. And again, the chilies with the 200 number of tweets, this is quite interesting, surprising. Right, so this is the nowcasting project, and as a last slide, I ask and I bring your attention about one of our not our, but the reports produced by UN Independent Expert Advisory Group for Data Revolutions. Actually, the middle of this year, the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, collects some people for advising data revolutions in United Nations. And the last week, they produced the first report entitled "A Word That Counts," and this is around 30 or 40 pages of the report, and it explains a lot or details how new types of the data can help the decision making and what is the innovation, what is data revolution examples. Actually, the report introduced 8 different kind of the data revolution examples. One of them is about our nowcasting project. So what kind of the new types of the data can help public sector? So if you are interested in reading those reports, just please visit the undatarevolution.org. Right. Okay. So yes, thank you very much. Right. So if you have any questions or if you have something to discuss with me, you can contact me. Right. And also in the websites, we explain a lot or details about our research project, theirs or our events or etc. So visit theirs. We maintain very well. Our communication specialists are really, really good to maintain those information. And also we disseminate our research project, our activities or other information in our Twitter accounts, UN Global Pulse and Pulse Jakarta and Pulse Kampala. So yes, visit theirs, and I hope you help this presentation, and now you have a little bit better ideas about big data for developments and some research project using the big data for public sectors and humanitarian actions. All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, John, and that was fantastic. I'm going to just jump on for a second here again. Thank you very much, John. That was outstanding. So we are going to give the students a little bit of time to ask some questions. Thank you for offering to stick around. John, I don't know if you can see, there's a little chat window in the GoToMeeting control panel. Do you see that? So it's right underneath.
I can see that, right, sure.
You can see, okay. So students, we don't want to have everyone asking questions at once and have everyone talking over themselves. So if anyone has any questions for Dr. Lee, please type them into the chat window. We're going to start with that. If there's anything that's too complicated for the chat window and you need to talk, just send myself or Mike Schulte a private chat, and we'll make some time for you to ask a question if you don't really know how to put it into words in chat. So, Jonathan, you're going to get a few questions in the chat window. We're going to ask you to go through a couple of them, answer what you can. We won't get through all of them, so don't worry about it. Before we start with that, I want to ask one quick question to kick it off, which is, what kind of tools are you working with day to day whenever you're working on any projects? What type of programming languages or applications are big parts of your tool set?
Yes, all right. So for instance, we make some partnership with the private company which can offer some analysis toolkit. For instance, we are using Crimson Hack for analyzing social media, and we have the partnership with SAS, and so we are using their SAS analytic platform. But other than that, we usually use Python language to make our analysis code or the open source or dashboards, etc. All right, and
yeah, thanks so much. So if there are going to be a lot of questions in the chat window, so if you want that you can answer, just go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I'm trying to. Yes. So I saw one of the questions asked by Charlie Ferrari. Have you worked with the companies doing the similar things like Promise or the billions? Yes, billion prize project in MIT, right? So currently we are yes, Tokyo was the promise to make the pilot project in Indonesia, because basically the promise for someone who are not familiar with the premise, actually this is a company provided technology for crowdsourcing for food price monitoring. Actually, the participants can take a pictures when they visit the supermarket, take a picture of the price tag, and then they upload to the premise servers. Then premise servers can analyze that imagery to identify the price information, and then they provide the real-time information in the dashboard. This is something, right? So actually, one of the thing we are doing or expanding our activity is how to combine the big data insights plus other innovative technologies along with official statistics, a small data set as well. So we are talking with premise now to make the pilot project to see how those information can complement our nowcasting or other types of information as well. So yes, and the MIT Billion project, actually I haven't talked with them, but our data scientists in New York, the chief data scientist, yes, have talked with them about their project. Yeah, but still we are thinking how to compare or how to work with them as well, right? All right, the next questions by Arbons Palumbo. We'll see. Yes, challenges working across so many governments, sharing issues. Actually, well, yes, even within a government, within a national government, there are many line ministries and there are many local governments, right? So here in Indonesia, there are the 34 local provinces. So sharing issues, basically the national government has the data set, so we can start to use the national government data set, but sometimes national one is kind of the aggregated, but the local governments has their own data sets. This is more disaggregated information. At the end we need it. So challenging, so always like the government's communication issues or some official channels or bureaucratic delays or something like that. That's quite challenging actually, because it takes some time. Sometimes it's hard to avoid. So that's one thing. Yeah. So always those things is challenging. But about the sharing issues, as long as that information does not have the privacy information, and then the local governments willing to share that information with actually the national government, right? So because the Pulse of Jakarta is the part of the Indonesian governments and part of the United Nations Indonesia. So about the sharing issues, it's okay, but there are some bureaucratic delays about that, right? So the next one by Ben around CBR, right? So what kind of work is being done with relation to MNE on UN program evaluations? Well, actually, I don't know much about UN program evaluation, but the Pulse of Jakarta, we have MNE specialist working on because basically we are using the big data. But there are some challenging things before we directly use that insights to their program, the government program. There are some guidelines or some methods regarding the monitoring and evaluations, because big data is not a magic solution anyway, and so the big data can be biased the data sets. So it just covers, for instance, the social media just cover some people who can use the digitals, and definitely digital divide happens always. So we need to really, really carefully use that information. So from that side, we have the MNE specialist here developing some tools or the guideline or framework about big data M&E. All right. Yes. Asked by Jay, they're just wondering if thoughts of bringing in some sentiment analysis of the Twitter data set. Definitely. Actually, the government's quite interested in sentiment information because just knowing the concern is not enough. So they wanted to understand a little bit more about the sentiment around some issues, right? So that's quite important. So now we are developing some sentiment analysis toolkits in Indonesia. Actually, in Indonesia, the Bahasa Indonesia is the official language, but there are others 400 different kinds of languages. Actually, we usually say 400, but it can be 1,000 because in Papua areas there are more local languages, but just not counted, right? So we are developing some sentiment toolkits. Here is in Bahasa Indonesia in collaboration with the local universities and the private sectors, and the New York office they more use English than we can use our partners, the Crimson Hexagon or other tools. Yeah, definitely sentiment is quite important information. Right. The questions asked by Parshu Rad, what is the error levels in the model? Right. Well, actually, I didn't really remember. Actually, yes, I can remember the error rate or error value of that. That one, but I just quickly visit here, right? The slide again, all right? Oh. Okay, so if see here, so actually the someone who are not familiar with the IDR, the rupiah, the 75,000 rupiah is about $7 or $7.5. Yes, no, the current exchange rate is about $7. So if you see here the error levels of between the official statistics and the model is somewhere around, well, 20 cents, or, well, actually, if this answer is enough, right? They asked by adults, right? How do you set up big data infrastructures? All right. Globally, we have a partnership with Amazon, so we can use Amazon AWS and their cloud computing facility. So that's one thing we are using for data analysis. But on the other side, Positive Jakarta, the government prepares the infrastructure as well. So for us, so for instance, the high performance computing, the facility in the 100 of terabyte of the storage and very good server. So we are using that facility. So again, basically we have a partnership with Amazon, so we're using that. But from the Positive Jakarta point of view, can use the government facility as well. Right. A question asked by Arbon. How do different users pattern bias data sets when looking at the host country, tweeting Jakarta radio in Uganda? All right. Yeah, I assume those are different because basically the purpose is different, right? So Twitter is more, no, actually the radio is general as well. But actually I haven't looked at, because the radio developments, they still in developments, so I haven't seen the final result. So I cannot answer that question, but how do different users pattern bias the data set when looking at, well, actually, my assumption is different, but I need more information. Right. Okay. Asked by Ben, are you seeing internal buy-in or uptake within UN using prediction you are creating? It really depends, actually. Well, actually, we are testing some feasibility of the data for sort of food security or the humanitarian actions or other purposes, and then right. So we try to hand over, right? So, but if the client or the collaborators don't have any capacity to maintain that, then still we don't hand over. So we maintain that. But if they want to take us, then we hand over and they can use them all, right? And another question by Ben: what kind of analysis does the UN Global Pulse on UN project there geospatial implication? For instance, have you looked at donors' coordinations within country for certain kind of sectors? Let me read it again. What kind of analysis does UN Global Pulse do on UN project and their geospatial implication? For instance, have you looked at donor coordination within countries certain types? No, actually, well, actually, this is the as far as I understand the questions, this is not a scope. We are doing, so we are more interested in the development issues and humanitarian actions. But as far as I remember, the World Bank team analyzed those kind of analysis. For instance, the procurement analysis or the donor or the financial fiscal consumption per sectors or per partners or per per agency, something like that. And yes, but we don't much. We didn't align with that purpose analysis. It's just one questions. What is the backend database you are using for analysis? Right. It's quite depend, right? Well, actually, nowadays we are using some MongoDB for analyzing some data set. But I think, well, actually, New York, so for their research post 2015, I think they are also using MongoDB, right? Well, actually, I need to check. Thanks for the question, right? But yes, we are using MongoDB. All right. I think I pretty much covered the question.
Yes, you did. So thank you, John, and thank you very, very much for taking the time and speaking with us. It was fantastic. I think it speaks for everyone. We really, really appreciate you waking up very, very early and getting on to share with us some of your work. So thanks very much. Everyone, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Dr. Lee, I'm going to follow up with you and try and get all of the links that you shared and maybe your slides. I'd love to share them with the group as a whole. And have a great day. Have a great night, everyone in New York, and thank you all.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks. Have a nice day, night, and afternoon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.